Am I audible? Hello? Those are online?
Yes,
Am I
sir.
audible? Yes, very good. Okay, so as you can see on the board, today we are going to conduct the Morse test on a petrol engine, what we have, a multi-cylinder petrol engine. So basically, I think you might be knowing about the different methods of measuring uh, frictional power. There are many methods. One among them is the Morse test. We have methods like Williams-Lines method or motoring test, etc., for finding out the frictional power. So the aim of this particular experiment is to find the frictional power of the engine. Now, when we are talking of frictional power, basically we should understand what is frictional power, and then we will move ahead. So we have an engine. We have an engine over here, and we know the power produced inside the combustion chamber of the engine is called as indicated power, and the power available at the crankshaft of the engine is what we call as the brake power. And whatever is lost in between these two, between these two, is the frictional power. Okay, this much amount of power is lost is in between the transmission system. That is, when the piston receives energy and it is being transmitted to the crankshaft, some amount of power is lost, which we call as the frictional power. And we want to find out this particular frictional power of the engine. Now, the method what we are going to follow to find out the frictional power is to switch the cylinders alternatively. So if you have a so we have the corresponding to the frictional power of the engine, we have so we need to find out it. And suppose we are having a 4-cylinder engine, there will be one switch corresponding to cylinder number 1, cylinder number 2, cylinder number 3, and cylinder number 4. So alternatively, what we will be doing is we will be switching off. Suppose I switch off the switch now. Afterwards, I am stopping the firing of the cylinder number 1. Now, whatever power will be developed, it will be developed by only 2, 3, and 4 together. In the second case, I will be making the switch 1 operative, and switch 2 will be now switched off. Switch 2 will be off. Now 1, 3, and 4 will be operating. That means cylinder 2, in the cylinder 2, there will not be any power developed. Okay, while in cylinder 1, 3, and 4, there will be power developed. Like this, we can have an arrangement like we can switch off the cylinder number 3, and we can have the cylinder number 4 also switch off alternatively. So here I'm switching off the 1. Here in the second case, I'm switching off the 2. Here I'm switching off the 3, and here is switching off the 4. So this was a 4-cylinder engine. And now what I'm expected to do over here. So initially, I'm checking with all the switches on. That means when I'm working the engine with all the cylinders switched on, that means there is a firing in 1, 2, 3, and 4, all the cylinders. That means power developed by this particular case will be the sum of the powers developed in all the 4. Sum of the powers developed in all the 4. In this particular case, when I am switching off 1, it will be the power developed by the 3-cylinder except one. So in all this particular case, it will be one other than the one which is switched off. म्हणजे ज्या सिलेंडर मध्ये आपण स्विच ऑफ करतोय त्याच्यामध्ये फायरिंगच होत नाहीये. फायरिंग होत नाहीये म्हणजे थोडक्यात काय, वॉट एव्हर पॉवर डेव्हलप्ड विल बी मॅक्झिमम हिअर बिकॉज this particular power corresponds to the power developing when all the cylinders are firing. While in this all particular cases, we have power developed in 3 cylinders. One, we have switched off either one or first or second or third or fourth. We have switched off. Barabar? Now, how you are using this particular formula for finding out the frictional power is the question. So coming back to the basics. So we know initially let us we assume that we are denoting BP by B, word B, IP by word I, and FP by word F. So henceforth, whenever I write B, it is brake power. Whenever I write I, it is indicated power. And whenever I write F, it will be frictional power. And we can write I minus F is equal to B, isn't it? So the indicated power minus the frictional power is your brake power. So I minus F is equal to B. We know this is the equation, basic equations, what we have learned. Also, we have used this particular formula in the previous practical also to find out the brake power, that is B. So brake power is equal to 2 pi nt upon 60,000 kilowatt. This particular equation we have used. No problem. Okay. I hope I'm audible to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So, sir, आता आपण इथं काय करणार आहे? So we have BP is equal to 2 pi nt upon 60,000 into kilowatt. So this formula everybody knows, where N is the speed of the engine, RPM of the engine, and T is the torque of the engine. Depending on which type of dynamometer you are using, the formula for finding out the T will be different. If you are using a rope brake dynamometer, then the T will be found out by, that is the torque will be equal to force into perpendicular distance S. So where S is the force applied on the spring balance or the weight, and if you are assuming that it is something like this, in this particular case, here this is the pulley, this is the spring balance, and this is the weight. In this particular case, it will be W minus S. That will be your force. Okay, so force will be W minus S. And here this is the spring balance reading. Let this be indicated by, this is the perpendicular distance. We'll denote by D. That will remove perpendicular distance D, and the perpendicular distance will be this much. Okay, from center of this to center of the rope, center of the pulley to center of the rope. This will be in case of a rope brake dynamo. And if you are using another pulleys like dynamometers like a hydraulic dynamometer or eddy current dynamometer, then the manufacturer of that particular dynamometer will give you the formula for finding out the T. Okay, how to find out the torque, and that formula has to be used to find out the torque. So obviously N will be measured using a tachometer. So we know how we have a contact tachometer type of tachometer, where the tip of the tachometer has to be pressed against the center of the shaft, rotating shaft, output shaft, crankshaft, where the tip also starts rotating at the same speed of that of a shaft, and therefore we can see the on the display of the tachometer, we can see the rotational speed of the engine. Okay, so this we know, and once we measure this, now let us move on to our engine. So in this particular case, we have a multi-cylinder 4-stroke engine which is having 3 cylinders. Okay, so here whatever example I have shown, it was for 4 cylinders. Now when coming to 3 cylinders, now the total brake power B is equal to the brake power produced by cylinder number 1, brake power produced by cylinder number 2, brake power produced by cylinder number 3. correct? Because we have 3 cylinders. So now I am indicating, denoting the 1 corresponding to cylinder number 1. So, here I1 minus F1 means indicated power produced in cylinder number 1 minus frictional power produced in cylinder number 1. That will be I minus F is equal to B. So this will be equal to the brake power produced in cylinder number 1. Similarly, this will be I2 minus F2 will be the brake power produced in cylinder number 2. This will be the brake power produced in cylinder number 3. So total brake power produced is equal to the brake power produced by cylinder number 1, brake power produced by cylinder number 2, brake power produced by cylinder number 3. Okay, I think this much is very clear. Now, moving ahead, what I will be doing is I will be denoting B1 as a brake power when spark plug of cylinder number 1 is cut off. I will be denoting by B1. B2 I will denote when brake power of the engine. So this is when I'm saying BP here, it is the engine BP. So brake power of the engine when the spark plug of cylinder number 1 is cut off is B1. Similarly, B2 corresponds to when spark plug 2 is cut off, and B3 corresponding to when spark plug 3 is cut off. So that means when I'm saying B1, spark plug 1 is off. Spark plug 1 is off. Only spark plug 2 and spark plug of cylinder number 3 is working. When I'm saying B2, it means that spark plug 2 is cut off and 1 is working, 3 is working. And when I'm saying B3, it means 3 is cut off, or in other words, 1 is working and 2 is working. So I can write this B1 as, so let this be equation number 1. Let this be equation number 1. Okay. Now I'm writing B1, which is this, is equal to, what is B1 indicates? B1 indicates that spark plug of cylinder number 1 is cut off. Spark plug of cylinder number 1 is cut off. It means that there will be no firing in the cylinder number 1. So what it means? It means that though no indicated power will be there in cylinder number 1. In cylinder number 1. 0. Why? Because we don't have the spark produced in the cylinder 1. So when there is no spark, there will be no firing or no combustion. In other words, we have IP produced in the cylinder number 1 is equal to 0. Now, obviously, I2 is there as it is, and I3 is also there as it is. Now the question arises whether F1 will be there. Since all the cylinders are connected to same shaft, the piston is going to move up and down inside the cylinder, irrespective of whether power is produced in that particular cylinder or not. Piston is going to move up and down, and therefore friction is going to be there, and therefore F1 is there. So even though we don't have the power produced in the engine because of the cutting of the spark, there is still F1 present inside the cylinder. So now this particular equation has been changed to is equal to 0 minus F1, I2 minus F2, I3 minus F3. So let this be equation number 2. Now, when B2, that is when the spark plug number 2 is cut, what will be the case? The case will be I1 minus F1, I1 minus F1 plus 0 minus F2 plus I3 minus F3. Let this be equation number 3. And similarly, B3, when the cylinder 3 is cut off, we have I1 minus F1 as it is plus I2 minus F2 plus 0 minus F3. What it means? Here it means that in the cylinder number 1, there is no firing, no combustion, no IP produced. This means there is in the cylinder number 2, there is no IP. That means no combustion, no power produced. In the cylinder number 3, no power, no IP produced. Now we have 4 equations. One corresponding to when all the cylinders are working. This when cylinder number 1 no firing, cylinder number 2 no firing, and cylinder number 3 no firing. So if I go for 1 minus 2, what I will get? So you can see here F1 is there, I2 is there, F2 is there, I3 is there, F3 is there. Only I1 minus 0. So this will be B1 is equal to minus so it will be I1. B1 is equal to I1. Yeah, B1 is equal to I1. Okay, so what B1 corresponds to? B1 corresponds to when the cylinder is cut off. Okay, then it becomes equal to I1. Similarly, 1 minus 3 will become I2, and similarly 1 minus 4 will become B3 is sorry, here it is B3 is equal to I3. Okay, so here it will be B minus B2 means this will cancel up, this will cancel up, this will, so I2 minus 0, that will become I2. When this and this we are taking here, this will cancel up, this will cancel up, this will cancel up, this will cancel up. Only I1, I3 minus 0, that will become I3. So that means what will be the 1 plus 2 or this equations? Let if this equations, if I write by 5, 6, and 7, what will be 5 plus 6 plus 7? 5 plus 6 plus 7. That will be the brake power produced when the cylinder number, alternatively, we are cutting the cylinder number 1 or 2 or 3. Okay, so if this is the case, then 1 minute, let me check out what has happened. Have I made any? Okay. Let me check out. 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. Sorry. Just I made a mistake by writing this in a different format. So this will be B1 plus F1, B2. I have to write in this fashion. Pardon me, I have made a mistake. Okay. So here it is like this. So it will come like this. I want to change it a bit. So that is why that format changed. B1, B3, B1, B2. Okay. Now this will be equal to, instead of like this, it will be coming as, if I write this as B, A, B, C, A, B, C, I will say, then it will be BA is equal to B1, BB or BB is equal to B2, or BC is equal to B3. So what I have done? Brake power plus, let me again I have made a mistake. Something is wrong. Let me, I have confused myself somewhere. So this will be then, in that particular case, this will be I. Yes. So it will be IA, IB, and IC. So this will be IA, IB, IC. Just I'm changing the format. Still there's some confusion. Let me check out what has happened. Okay. So here it will be B1 plus B2 plus B3 will be equal to I. Brake power. Okay. Has happened. No, it was correct actually. Here it was B. Here it was I. I1, I2, I3. And it was minus only I1 minus F1, I minus I3 minus F3. Then this becomes F1 as it is, I2 as it is, this is I3 as it is, and here it becomes minus, here it becomes minus, here it becomes minus minus, here it will be I1, here it will be F2 over I3, I1 and I2, here it will be minus, here it will be minus, and here it will be minus. So here everywhere it will be minus. Yeah, and as usual, here it will be the BA, let us say BB and BC. Okay, doesn't matter. So now B minus BA, 1 minus 2 will give you the brake power of the engine when number one cylinder is cut off. That is 1 minus 2 will give you I1 equal to I1. 1 minus 3 it will give you I2, and 1 minus 3 it will give you I3. Yes. Okay, doesn't matter. So what we have got is the brake power corresponding to when we are cutting the cylinder of cylinder number 1. So brake power is equal to I1 plus I2 plus I3. But we know that what I1 plus I2 plus I3 is equal to, I1 plus I2 I2 plus I3 is equal to what? I1 plus I2 plus I3 is equal to total I. This we know, already we know, because what is I1? I1 is the indicated power produced in cylinder number 1. What is I2? Indicated power produced in cylinder number 2. And I3 is equal to indicated power produced in cylinder number 3, which is equal to I. So what we have? We have B, we have I. B is equal to I1 minus F1, I2 minus F2, I3 minus F2. But how to find out this? We have this formula. So we have the formula to finding out brake power. So what we are doing, we are actually finding only BP, brake power. But using the finding brake power, we are able to calculate I, which is equal to I1 plus I2 plus I3. And we know that I minus B is equal to F. This is the equation what we have written in here. I minus F, or this can be written as I minus B is equal to F. Okay. So in order to find out B frictional power of the engine, because see, there is no direct method of finding. We cannot find out actually how much power is lost in the system. So what we have done, we have gone indirectly. So what we have done, we have made arrangement for cutting the cylinder number 1, 2, 3. So now when cut to the cylinder number 1, whatever we are getting is I1. So brake power corresponding to the cylinder number 1 is I1. Here we are getting I2. Here what we are getting power. So whatever power we are getting is I1 plus I2 plus I3. But what is I1 plus I2 plus I3? I1 plus I2 plus I3 is equal to I, which is the indicated power of the engine. Now here we have found out indirectly the values of I1, I2 and I3. Okay. So if when you switch on all the spark plugs and measure the brake power of the engine, you will get this B. What is this? You measure the brake power using this formula when cylinder number 1 is cut off. What is this? You measure the power when cylinder number 2 is cut off. What is this? You measure the power when third cylinder is cut off. So you have cut alternatively cylinder number 1, 2 and 3, and you have found out whatever you are getting is I1 plus I1, I2 and I3. Now what is I1? I1 is indicated power in cylinder number 1. What is I2? Indicated power of cylinder number 2. What is I3? Indicated power in cylinder number 3. So what will be the total I1 plus I2 plus I3? Indicated power of the engine, complete engine. Correct. Now we have the brake power of the engine and we have indicated power of the engine. So once you know brake power of the engine and the indicated power of the engine, you can find out the frictional power of the engine. Correct. So what we have done, once again I will explain. Sorry for a bit confusion created. So our aim is to find out the frictional power of the engine. Now, how to find out the frictional power? So basically, what is frictional power? We have three types of power. पॉवर अवेलेबल ॲट द क्रँकशाफ्ट. क्रँकशाफ्ट पैसे किती पॉवर तयार झालाय आणि ह्याच्या आयपी मायनस बीपी दॅट इज युअर एफपी. इथं किती तयार झालं आणि इथं किती आलं, राहिलेलं कुठे गेलं तर एफपी. सो आयपी मायनस एफपी इज इक्वल टू बीपी. बरोबर. सो दॅट इज रिटर्न आयपी मायनस एफपी इज इक्वल टू बीपी वी हॅव रिटर्न. म्हणजेच आय मायनस बी, आता ही इकडे घेतलं तर ही इकडे जाईल. सो आय इंडिकेटेड पॉवर मायनस ब्रेक पॉवर इज इक्वल टू फ्रिक्शनल पॉवर. तर हे एकदा आपल्याला आता हा फॉर्म्युला माहिती आहे. आता आपण काय केलं, वी हॅव रिटर्न इट इन दिस पर्टिक्युलर फॉर्मॅट. टोटल बी ब्रेक पॉवर ऑफ द इंजिन इज इक्वल टू I1 मायनस F1. ठीक आहे. इंडिकेटेड पॉवर ऑफ सिलेंडर नंबर 1, फ्रिक्शनल पॉवर ऑफ सिलेंडर नंबर 1. That is your B. What is this? I2 minus F2. I2 minus F2, cylinder number 2 चा brake power. What is this? Cylinder number 3 चा brake power. Total will be total engine चा brake power. So B is equal to I1 minus F1 plus I2 minus F2 plus I3 minus F3. Equation number 1 झालं. आता आपण काय केलं, B1 let B1 इथं BA लिहूया आता. BA, BB आणि BC. त्या 1, 2, 3 मुळे कन्फ्युजन होते त्यामुळे होती. BA is the power when cylinder number 1 is cut off. एक नंबर सिलेंडरला आपण कट करून टाकले आणि आपण फाइंड आउट केलं, त्यावेळेला काय आपल्याला मिळणार BA. आपण 2 ला कट केलं, स्पार्क प्लग नंबर 2 कट केला आणि आपण सिलेंडर इंजिनचा ब्रेक पॉवर फाइंड आउट केला, तर त्याला आपण BB म्हणतोय. आणि व्हॉट इज BC? 3 नंबर सिलेंडरला कट करून फाइंड आउट केलेल्या पॉवरला आपण BC असं म्हणतो. आता आपल्याकडे 4 पॉवर्स मिळाले. एक, सगळं सिलेंडर चालू असताना 1 नंबर कट करून फाइंड आउट केलेला ब्रेक पॉवर, 2 नंबर कट करून फाइंड आउट केलेला ब्रेक पॉवर आणि 3 नंबर कट करून फाइंड आउट केलेला ब्रेक पॉवर. बरोबर. आता आपण हे लिहिलं, हे कसं लिहिलं, ह्याच्यामधलं आपण काय शून्य केलंय, I1 शून्य केलंय. इथं का शून्य केलं, कारण आपण इंजिन मध्ये चार्ज भरतोय परंतु स्पार्कच करत नाहीये. स्पार्क करत नाही त्यामुळे ते बर्न होत नाही. बर्न होत नाही म्हणजे इंडिकेटेड पॉवर तयार होत नाही. सो इंडिकेटेड पॉवर बिकम 0. परंतु पिस्टन खालीवरती होतंय कारण शाफ्ट फिरतंय आणि त्या शाफ्टला पिस्टन कनेक्टेड आहे, त्यामुळे फ्रिक्शनल पॉवर तसंच राहते. म्हणजे दिस I1 बिकम्स हिअर 0, F1 रिमेन्स ऍज इट इज. ह्याला काहीच केलं नाही, I2 F2 तसंच राहिलं, इथं I3 F3 तसंच राहिलं. या केसमध्ये काय झालं, I2 इथलं I2 होतं ती 0 झालं, ही I2 आहे ती 0 झालं, कारण 2 नंबरचा स्पार्क प्लग आपण बंद करून टाकला. इथं I3 0 झालं. बरोबर, कारण आपण 3 नंबरचं सिलेंडर कट करून टाकलं. आता नाव दिस आय एम मेकिंग एज इक्वेशन नंबर 1, 2, 3 and 4 असं नाव देतोय. बरोबर. इथं काय आहे, I1 minus F1, I2 minus F2, I3 minus F3. इथं काय आहे, 0 minus F1, 0 minus F1, I2 minus F2, I2 minus F2 and I3 minus F3, I3 minus F3. इथं काय आहे, I1 minus F1, 0 minus F1. इथं 0 झालं. आता चेंज कुठे झालं, इथं झालं, इथं झालं आणि इथं झालं. बरोबर. आता 1 minus 2 जर इक्वेशन केलं, इक्वेशन 1 minus 2 केलं, I1 मधून 0 गेलं, I1 राहिलं. F1 कॅन्सल आउट होऊन गेलं, I2 कॅन्सल, F2 कॅन्सल, I3 कॅन्सल, F3 कॅन्सल. राहिलं काय, फक्त I1. दॅट इज BA इज इक्वल टू I1. तसं 1 minus 3 केलं तर काय होणार, I1 कॅन्सल होणार, F1 कॅन्सल होणार, I2 minus 0, फक्त I2 इथं राहिलं. F2 कॅन्सल, I3 F3 कॅन्सल, बाकी सगळं कॅन्सल होऊन गेलं. तसंच 1 minus 4 केलं तर I1 कॅन्सल झालं, F1 कॅन्सल झालं, I2 कॅन्सल झालं, F2 कॅन्सल झालं, I3 minus 0, I3 येणार, F3 कॅन्सल. तर आपल्याला काय मिळालं, आपण सिलेंडर नंबर 1 कट करून, स्पार्क कट करून ब्रेक पॉवर फाइंड आउट केला, दॅट इज इक्वल टू I1. सिलेंडर नंबर 2 कट करून फाइंड आउट केला तर दॅट इज वी आर गेटिंग I2. आणि सिलेंडर नंबर 3 कट करून फाइंड आउट केला, पॉवर कट फाइंड आउट केला, दॅट इज इक्वल टू I3. आणि पण आपल्याला माहिती आहे I1 म्हणजे काय, I2 म्हणजे काय, I3 म्हणजे काय. I1 म्हणजे काय, इंडिकेटेड पॉवर इन सिलेंडर नंबर 1. दिस इज इंडिकेटेड पॉवर इन सिलेंडर नंबर 2. and this is indicated power in cylinder number 3. So I1 plus I2 plus I3 is equal to I. What is I? I is indicated power of the engine, total engine. So now minus this B, I minus B is equal to F. So without going for anything, just finding out the brake power of the engine, we are able to find out the frictional power of the engine by this particular arrangement. And this is what you call as a Morse test. This is what you call as a Morse test. And what for Morse test is done? To find the frictional power of the engine. म्हणजे engineचा frictional power find out करायचं असेल तर आपण ही टेस्ट वापरू. Okay. Now coming to shear. The Anaki, camera Anaki. So here, coming to engine, back to engine. Here we have a 3-cylinder engine where we have 3 different switches. You can see over here. Now this is on. I can make it off or on. So this is given to the spark plug of cylinder number 1. So when I make it off, the spark will not fire. When I make it on, the spark is going to fire. Here similarly, now the cylinder 2 spark plug is off. I can make it on. Now the cylinder number 3 is off. I can make it on. Now if I start the engine, all the cylinders are going to work. All the cylinders are going to work because they are going to fire. I have started the firing of spark plug of all the 3 spark plugs. Cylinder number 1, cylinder number 2, cylinder number 3. This switch है. Current, the electricity is supplied from the ignition system to the spark plug. त्याच्यामध्ये आपण ही switch टाकू. When I switch off this, there will not be any power supply from ignition system to spark plug. त्यावेळेला spark होणार नाही. हे on केलं की spark होणार. Okay, so that is how we have made this particular arrangement. So if I run with all the 3 cylinders on, I am going to get this B, first one, B, total B. When I am switching this off, cylinder number 1, cutting, and I am now working the engine, and I am measuring the power. What I am getting is BA, that is power of the engine when cylinder number 1 is cut off. I switch on this, I switch off this. Cylinder number 2 has been cut off. Now I measure the power once again. Now third case, I switch off the spark plug of cylinder number 3, and once again I will measure the power. So 4 times I have measured the power. Initially, when all the cylinders were on, second time when the cylinder number 1 is off, third time when the cylinder number 2 is off, and when the cylinder 3 is off. 1 minus second, first power minus second power will give you I1. First minus third will give you I2. First minus fourth will give you I3. I1 plus I2 plus I3 is equal to I. So you have now B and I. You can find out the frictional power of the engine. So I hope everybody understood how to find the frictional power of the engine. So this engine is working. You can start the engine and you can now calculate. So you can start the engine now. एक मिनिट मी पहिल्यांदा एक्सप्लेन करतो आणि नंतर तुम्ही कॅल्क्युलेट करा. So we are going to start the engine now. Battery connect किया हाँ, all the cylinders are on now. Battery on किया थोड़ा की एक मिनिट हाँ So now the display is on. This is a torque controller. Using this, you are going to change the torque of the engine. That is load of the engine. So you rotate this. On that particular dial, you can see the torque changing. Okay. Yes. So that is changing the load. Here you can measure the speed of the engine. Okay. Presently this is the speed and this is the temperature. Now you don't measure the temperature. It is for another test. Okay. Let it be as it is. So presently what you will require, you will be taking the reading of the RPM over here and the load of this, change the load at different loads, you find out the torque. Okay, and every time ensure that the speed is remaining constant. Whenever you change the load, okay, using this, ensure that speed remains constant. Okay, for same speed, you have to measure all the powers. Okay, so you can. Only two readings, N and T. For measurement of N here and measurement of torque over there. Only two readings you have to take. Okay. So इकडे येऊन बसू ना इकडे या. So what readings you are going to take? So only this readings you have to take. Okay. Table BC. And B minus BA, you will get I1. This will be equal to I1. This equal to I2. And this equal to I3. And then I1 plus I2 plus I3. That is equal to here, the total one. Okay, you add this and you write here I. So this B, I minus B will give you F. You take the readings now. So पहिल्यांदा B काढायचं आणि त्याच्यानंतर B1, B2. B काढा की हे लोड आणि स्पीड हे करून काढायचं. You have this particular formula. ते कॉन्स्टंट ठेवायचं. हा क्लिअर. आता ठेवले का अप्रॉक्सिमेटली 22 ठेवलंय. 22 ठेवा. 7 8. Okay, I hope everybody has understood. Online people, anybody having any doubt in what is being done? Anybody? How? कसं reading करणार होता? Okay, I'll stop over here. Thank you.